How's everybody doing? Give me a wave if you can hear us. All right, I got sound. This is perfect. This is perfect. All right, we're getting some folks in here. I'm gonna add a couple co-hosts here. Danny, good to see you. It's been a little bit.
Same.
Kelly and Linda, Dave, Anna, Lisa, Christy.
Hi guys.
Guys, quick mic check. Tell us if you can hear both of our voices okay. Yeah.
Can you hear us both?
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. All right, we'll give it another minute or two for people to hop on. We're so glad to see you guys. So glad to see so many couples on. And very clear that if you're on solo, we think this is going to work great. And if you're on with somebody else, we think it's going to work great. And
do us a favor, if you are stationary and can change your name.
This meeting is being recorded.
Put your names in there, and then also where you are joining us from.
If we're a couple on two different screens, should we be in the same room together for your activities, or should we be on separate screens?
Tiffany, you can, but you don't have to. If you're in separate spots, that's totally okay too.
Perfect. We'll give it another minute or so.
We're joining you from our lake house outside of Kansas City. So
this is awesome. Love it.
Great?
Love it.
This is where
By the way, if
away.
you're joining in right now, the pre-game conversations. Let's see if we can. Oh, hang on. I gotta. Oh, let me pin.
Die if you can see all of the things
So many things. I guess I'll do it this way. I don't know if this will change everybody else. All right. So the homework has begun. The homework has begun. If you are joining us here, grab a piece of paper, grab a notepad, grab a journal. Do not copy off your neighbor on this stuff. This is why is being here important to you with your spouse, and yet their individual answers. So I'd say grab a journal, and we're going to start to dig in. We think this is going to be a great reflective time, and yet we're going to give folks a few minutes to get into it here. Okay.
All right, so like I said, if you don't have the journal, make sure you go grab one of those unless you are driving. Would love to start here with just why is being in alignment with your spouse important to you today? And what would being in full alignment make possible for you? So what we're really committed to is helping you get on the same page. And some of you might say, well, I'm not even like in the same chapter or in the same book or the same library. And sometimes we've not even been on the same planet or solar system. So what would be possible if you were in alignment with your spouse? What would that look like? So take 30 seconds. You can go ahead and you can bullet point, you can narrative, you can draw a picture. There are no wrong answers. And you don't have to share this with anyone if you don't want to. So it's just for you. So go ahead and take 30 seconds to reflect on that.
Yeah, and somebody asked in the chat, will we get a copy of this recording? Highly likely, especially since there's a bunch of realtors on here that are always doing a bunch of different things. And realtors are good at bartering. So here will be the barter. We will barter the recording in exchange for feedback. So all you're going to have to do is provide feedback, and you're probably totally going to get the recording. There you go.
So take 30 seconds and go ahead and reflect on this. So today's going to be a combination of, we're going to give you some information and some tools and some resources, and it's going to be a combination of some reflection, because the deepest form of learning is actually reflection. It's the thinking and the writing. That's the hard work. It's easy to listen because it's really passive. And the active learning comes when you are digesting the information, and it will be a lot in the form of these questions. And you might get some of these questions and be like, I don't really know. That's totally cool. Jot down the question. And for those of you that are here by yourselves, these are questions to take back to your significant other, because here's what's going to happen. Like, a well-asked question actually changes the future before the answer to the question ever arrives. So sometimes it's just pondering the question that is the work to be done. So again, if you're here together, you're here individually, doesn't matter, you're going to take all of this stuff. The conversation is the relationship. So you've probably heard that before. And what we feel like we do really well and are bringing to you today is a new way to have conversations. Because if the conversation is the relationship, and either we're not having conversations, we're having the wrong conversations, we're avoiding conversations, then that will shape what the relationship is. So we want to help you craft the best relationship possible by having the best conversations.
Next question. You ready to jump to it?
Jump to the second one? All right. So if we were meeting a year from now to celebrate, Seth and I were meeting with you and your significant other, what would we be celebrating about your marriage and your life? Again, take 30 seconds to jot down whatever comes to mind. This could be narrative, bullet points, a picture. If we got to sit down with you and your significant other a year from now to celebrate, what would we be celebrating about your marriage and your life?
All right, we'll pull us back in. And guys, from time to time, only because we're so self-conscious of our own, like, is the audio working, etc. So if we just say like, hey, thumbs up, tell me you can hear. There's not enough people. Danny, you're just the best. You're just the best. Thank you. Guys, these are the questions that when we are out, when we're out on date night, when we're at our best, when we're doing sort of year-end reviews of things, these are the kinds of questions that we're asking. But we're very, very clear that the whole purpose of today is to have you write down in your journal some questions that will outlive today, right? The work does not get done here. What gets done here is almost creating this map of like, these are questions or these are prompts that we never knew to ask. We never knew a way to ask it. But we're very clear that what happens on mute is far more important, or what happens the hour after this call is far more important than what happens on this call. And that's what we really want for everybody. So this question is, it actually comes from somebody named Dan Sullivan, if anybody wants sort of the history behind it. I don't know if you knew that or not. I'm looking at Alice and be like, do you know where that question came from? And he has something called the R Factor DOS question. It's something from Strategic Coach. And the idea is simply this: in any period of time, if we were to get together 3 years from now, 2 years from now, a year from now, and celebrate something, what would need to happen personally or professionally for us to feel like this amazing amount of progress? And that's a question, man, as couples, what would happen if we were asking ourselves that question on a regular basis? Maybe it's at weekly date night, maybe it's at annual planning, maybe it's quarterly getaway, whatever it might be. And then here's maybe the last question as we start to ground in today. What intention would you like to set for how you show up today in order to make this the best experience for you and ultimately for your spouse? Again, whether your spouse is attending or not, right? What intention would you like to set up for how you show up today in order to make this the best experience for you and ultimately for your spouse? Okay, moving on. So we're going to use a little bit of a metaphor today, and I wonder, if people can come off mute or not for this. Raise your hand if you're familiar with the idea of the hero's journey. Raise your hand if that is a framework that you're familiar with, right? Like it could be from a bunch of different places. We have found this framework to just it has created so much richness for the way that we talk about things, right? And it's usually, at least when I first heard the story, it's a singular journey, right? It is the hero. There's a hero of the story, and they meet people along the way. And something I'd invite us to think about today is like, what if you are paired right now with the person who ends up being the perfect mate for you for this crazy life journey? And what does it look like as a couple to have a couple's hero's journey? And that's the journey that we've been on for several years now. And I got to say, some really rough patches, right? Sometimes I'm like, I did not want to be on the journey with this person, right? I don't know if I'm the only one. You certainly would agree on that. But we realize like the story of the hero's journey and the different stages that a hero goes through in transformation sure feels a lot like committed relationships. And thank you. I get a comment there about the graphics feeling blurry. Is that true for others? Give me a few. All right, we'll see. Actually, well, that one I think is the most blurry. Let me know if they get better. That's what happens when you pull stuff off the internet. That's on me. Okay, so we're gonna get started with figuring out where we're coming into this call. In a way, Alice and I sat down as we're working through content on this. We're like, well, what on kind of a November, December basis, what are the conversations that we always set out to do? And we've been doing goal setting, planning as a family in November, December for over 20 years. And honestly, I don't think we're going to do it this year, but honestly, when our kids were young, we'd kind of be with family, and we would actually find a time like the Friday after Thanksgiving, we'd like get away for one night, and it worked perfect for us for a season. So who knows, maybe you've got plans as a couple to get away over the next couple of weeks. But we would always start with this idea of like, can we just take stock of where we are? And I apologize, like if when I do that, you'll be able to see the whole thing, and then I understand that I'm going to be kind of covering a little bit of it by putting our faces back in. But we're always thinking about where have we been, where are we now, what season have we been? So we're gonna talk about some of this stuff to get started. Al said earlier the conversations are the relationship. For us, it has been conversations that went missing far too long, that if we had just had somebody be the springboard for the right conversations, we think about how many years that would have saved us in sort of wandering through the wilderness. And then ultimately for us, it has been about getting a certain series of tools. And when I say tools, we're going to show you some frameworks. These are nothing more than like, these could be napkin drawings. You all could go on a date night tonight and draw something on a napkin and be like, remember that framework? Like, let's talk through that, right? And then in a way, the right sequence to work through them. I don't know about you guys, but there seems to be a sequence inside of these relationships that works. And when you try to put the same ingredients in the relationship and you put it out of sequence, terrible result. Okay, so let's start with sequence in this way. Whenever we start thinking about the future, we've got one of two choices. We can think about what doesn't exist that we want to exist, which is a way of saying how much further we still want to go, or we can talk about how far we've come and how to build on that. Who's heard of the book, The Gap in the Gain? Raise your hand if you've read The Gap in the Gain or heard about it. If you haven't, go pick it up. It's Ben Hardy, also Dan Sullivan. The idea is, are you measuring your life based on what you still want to accomplish? The gap, right? What you still want in your finances, what you still want in your business, what you still want out of your relationship, what you want from your kids, or are you measuring it from how far we've come? So we have found that when we start a conversation with each other from the place of the gap, we're screwed. Like it was doomed before it ever begins. And when we are able to start, which we don't always do, but when we are able to start from the place of starting from the gain, how far we've come, huge move forward, right? So we're going to take a couple minutes right now and actually work through that. So just start with we're grateful for. My encouragement would be, I mean, goodness, y'all are still on mute, this talkative bunch. You can do this individually, right? And if you're there with your partner, feel free to share if you want to, right? You want to throw some things in the chat, man, we'd sure love to read them, and maybe some folks can come off mute and share some things in a little bit. But start with, what are you grateful for? Here's the best hack we ever got. Go to your phone, pull up your pictures, pull up the photos on your phone. John, I just saw a no, and I'm actually like super curious to know right now like what that meant, but there we go. So here's what we do. We pick up the photos from our phone, and we just start to scroll. We'll go January 1st of this past year, and we will just start to scroll through photos. And it is amazing at what an impetus that is for gratitude. So for a moment, start to write down, I'll get back in there, start to write down, what are we grateful for? What are we grateful for? Take a couple minutes there. If you need memory joggers, see those categories at the bottom. What are you grateful for in career, business, relationships, and family? Thanks for that comment. There's the memory joggers at the bottom there. Career, business, relationships, family, wealth, home. What's something you're grateful for in your home? Your health, travel. These are just the areas we use. So each one of these things, guys, we're not going to be able to do it justice, right? In fact, we're probably trying to walk you through what we think might be like an 8-hour process. We might find a way to actually walk through it more with folks kind of in a bigger time span. But we think if we were hanging out together, this would be a day of a process. But what we are wanting to do is grab a screenshot, or like we said, there's going to be a way for you to get these notes. Write these things down, because these are exercises that we just have in our toolbox, right? And that's the only thing that we have found that works for us, is having enough tools in the toolbox over time. So I'm going to show you this one. I'm going to take our faces off of it for a second. If anybody wants to grab a screenshot there. This is something called paired opposites. Totally need to give credit right now to Ryan Dice. Scalable. Scalable is where I heard about this from. It is, paired opposites is this idea of, instead of just focusing on the positive, it's okay to actually have a little bit of focus over time for, where are their struggles? So this is actually a series of questions that we will ask just to start to open it up, right? And actually make it okay to express some negative emotions in a way. So the from left to right, it kind of goes, the past. You might think about it as the past year. You might think about it as the past quarter. So in this past period of time, whatever framework you want to use, what are you proud of? What are you proud of, and what do you regret? What are you proud of, and what do you regret? Take a couple moments on that. Then move to the present. What's something I'm confident in? And what's something I lack? We'll get started with those two. Should be moving on to the present if you're not already there. And then I'll open this one up so you see it, the future. We're excited about, or I'm excited about, and I worry about. Two more. These are the pair opposites. All right, so heads up, we're gonna invite some interaction here in a couple minutes in two ways. One is to either throw some of your ideas in the chat, and two, we'll have you raise your hand, maybe pull a couple people off mute to share. But before we do that, if you're in the room with somebody else, and you feel like you've processed enough in writing that a share would be helpful between the two of you, share something. You could share the hardest thing on there to share. You could share the lightest thing. There's going to be something on there that is the right thing to share in the moment. But share something with whoever you're next to on this, and then we'll invite a few folks to get some voices into the room.
Yes, this has been good. So worried about financial future, but also excited about.
Mute whoever wasn't.
Started playing music and I don't. Sorry about that.
Oh no, there we go. All right, you guys are coming on though. Be ready. Especially that potato. I love it. All right, Ann and Spencer, you're on deck.
Oh, sorry, our computer froze for a little bit. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear us?
Okay, yeah. So we just really liked the paired opposites. We felt like that was a really good way to kind of approach it. We're very different in our personalities and the way that we see the world. Like in every way, we are so different. And so sometimes we clash when we talk about things or dream about things because I'm a very discernment brain. He's a very wonder brain. And so like as we were talking about it, I go for what's our gap and he goes for what's our gain. And so I like being very purposeful and making sure we're doing both in each section instead of just saying, well, where did we lack? So where do we want to do here? I like focusing also, sorry, Toddler. I like focusing very much so on like, we're only talking about the past, we're only talking about the present, we're only talking about the future in the paired opposites. That was a really good kind of aha for us because I think that's been a communication breakdown that we've struggled with because we start to talk and we get frustrated the other person doesn't like think or understand or want to talk about the way that we want to talk about and our brain works. So as we were just kind of talking, we even felt like it was like, oh yeah, okay. Like I just felt like our communication even just in the last 2 minutes was even a little bit better in being able to think both sides because we know each of us will get a turn on how our brain works. So,
yeah. And isn't that so cool? I mean, it's kind of, I mean, God puts us together this way in these opposites and to be able to pull out the gifts in each of you and how it contributes to the whole.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a beautiful thing, but sometimes it can be our worst thing too.
Yep.
So I would encourage guys, write down 3 books. Anna and Spencer just gave you at least one of them. They might have given you more than that. So I'm going to give you 3 books right now that I just thought of just from that talk. Number 1, Working Genius. If you have not read The 6 Working Genius, write that down. That is absolutely a book that has helped us inside of our relationship. Okay.
On that real fast, you can take a test online that we did. Actually, just recently, it's only $20 a person, but you take it, it's really quick, and it will tell you working genius. So we haven't bought the book yet, but even just knowing our working geniuses and working solutions has been huge.
I actually recommend that you take that assessment before you get the book and read too much about it. So $25 in 10 minutes, and it is fantastic for your marriage. It's also good for your work teams as well.
Yeah. So there's one. Second book is The 6 Thinking Hats. Write down The 6 Thinking Hats. Why do I mention that? Because that book talks about a hat that some people wear. Have you ever heard the phrase the black hat thinker? Point to the black hat in your marriage. Point to the black hat in your marriage. Who wears the black hat? Okay, I see a couple people. Yeah, every marriage has somebody that tends to be more of the black hat. And what the book, The Six Thinking Hats, talks about is he's like, it's just a hat. It's just a hat. You this is your personality. It doesn't have to just be you.
What do you mean by black hat, Seth?
Sure. What I mean by black hat is like the pessimist, right? The skeptic, right? When a big old said, I don't think that'll work. Like who's more of the negative?
Who's gonna poke holes in things? Who's gonna poke all the holes?
Yep. And then the third book, I just lost it. Working Genius. Oh shoot, I'll come back to it. I remember the third book. There we go. All right, and hang on, I just missed a. I don't. Oh, I'm not sure. No, because you're not seeing that. What are y'all seeing right now? I need to figure out. That has a lot of screens.
Oh, here.
We're seeing your slide.
You're seeing the slides, yes, because
but it's
okay,
like
right.
it's not full screen, but it's.
Thank you. That would explain that a little bit because I was just trying to get the music going. Hang on, I'm going to see about this. Okay, I think that now that's going to be resolved. You guys cannot see my screen, right? Correct? But now you can. Yes? All right. Guys, we're rookies at this. I don't know what to say. We're better in real life. But it's easier this way. All right. Here's the next exercise. Who's done a Wheel of Life? Who's done a Wheel of Life exercise? Who's heard of a Wheel of Life exercise? I'm going to see a gallery view here. Okay, I think I've got plenty. So this has become probably our go-to process. And we're going to walk you through, I think, in a little bit like why. But I'm just telling you, like, the Wheel of Life is, there's so many different ways to use it. And I'm going to show you one right now. And quick thing, if you go to the website, if you got another screen open, go to the website realignedcouples.com/wheel. This is so janky, it's so terrible, but it will work for what we're trying to do right here. And it's one that you can actually play around with, and I'll explain why. So realignedcouples.com/wheel. It will, yeah. So one, you can, where it says wheel up there, you can actually type in that. You can change it. I'll explain to you in a second, like why you might want to change that. And then over on the right-hand side, it probably says health, career, finance, or relationships. You can change those. Does everybody see that? You can change them. Now, what I wish you could do is like print to PDF or email yourself or anything else. I told you it was janky. Here's the concept about a Wheel of Life exercise is anytime that our world feels bumpy, we realize that our problem was not that we set too big a goal. It's that we did not set a corresponding goal in another area. Does that make sense? Every time when we get to this time of the year, if we're like, we're feeling out of sorts, we're feeling like, I don't know, was it a good year? Was it a bad year? Was it a good quarter? Was it a bad quarter? We realize we just have to go around all the different spokes of the wheel and figure out where are we actually? And it always became about delineating. So like, here'd be an example, and I don't know where we pulled this one from, but this would be an example of somebody's wheel of life, right? So let's look at these categories. Significant others, career, fun and recreation, money and finances, physical environment, personal growth, health and well-being, friends, family, right? This is somebody made this up. And the cool part is y'all get to make it up too, right? There's no right way or wrong way to do a Wheel of Life exercise, but it is simply the exercise of going through picking categories of areas that matter and then starting to do a very simple gut check of how are we doing in this area. And we'll talk about kind of a way to take it another step here in a second. Anything you want to say on that?
There were years and years and years that I did this exercise and environment didn't show up on my wheel because I didn't know that it was important. Like, didn't know that it was a thing. And we went somewhere, or somebody said something and said something about environment. So put environment on there. And it could be as simple as, ladies are going to know what I'm talking about. Like, I might just need a new comforter on my bed because I need new color and I just need to feel happy when I walk in the room. Like it could be as simple as that, all the way down to our environment when we were living in Baltimore wasn't serving kind of the life that we wanted to live, and we moved to Austin. So everything from like, you know, buying a $30 comforter, pillows on the bed, to we're going to relocate the whole family, like environment played a role. And it was this exercise and going through that and realizing like, oh, like this isn't working for us. And that's how a big move happens. Like people would say to us all the time, like, how did you guys move your family from one place to another? All 6 of you were on the same page and you guys are all so excited about it and it all worked out so well. It started with this, because you have to identify where are the gaps in what's going on in life that's making it a bumpier ride than you want it to be. And so that's what this does for you. So
what I want you to do for a second is, and you can do it from that website, or you can grab, remember I said almost everything that we talk about, you could use a napkin. You literally just have to be able to draw something that is pretty close to a circle on a napkin, draw pie shapes, and you can do this exercise at any restaurant you go to, right? Now, clearly I keep saying restaurants, like I like to eat out with Alice. So one, I'd encourage you right now, whether you want to do it individually or do it as a couple, somebody draw a circle, somebody start to put some categories that matter. I'm going to be curious to know what categories you guys all agree on and what categories you're like, oh, I didn't even know. Like I probably wouldn't have put environment on there. I wouldn't have thought to do it, right? I might have said fun or recreation. Well, not fun. I would have said recreation before Alice would have, right? As an example. So whether you're using the one on our website or you draw a circle on a piece of paper, start to write down what are the categories that matter to you. And then we'll teach you something in a second. When you get to an area that is low, start to grade them. And just as memory joggers for others, do us a favor, start to throw in the chat, what are some of the categories that you've got in your wheel of life? How would you do it? The one on the screen here has relationships, and we found that in ours, it's like we really got to separate out marriage and the kids. And we definitely need to separate out marriage, the kids, and extended family. When we threw all that in as relationships, didn't work. Job versus career, work-life balance. Love it. Get a few more. We'll give you all. By the way, somebody tell me now if there's music or not. No? No music? What is wrong with that? We're taking this Mac back. All right. Shameful.
And Tiffany, I saw the work-life balance. I'd encourage you to dive deeper. Like, what would create work-life balance for you? So are there more components that we could dive into that you could add to the wheel? Just something to consider. Well, you're going to have to make up music in your heads, guys, because it's playing here for us, and we're trying to get it to you.
I got music? Unbelievable. And they're catching rockets from space? We're doing it all? Unbelievable.
Travel adventure.
Now just tell me when it's too loud. Thank you.
Always see the dangers first.
And that's somebody talking to the music. Too loud. All right, fine. All right. So by the way, here's the next exercise. And actually, I'm gonna put. You're not supposed to put people on the spot, right? But Tiffany, thank you for volunteering with the with that work-life balance, because this is perfect, right? Actually, no. Maybe you can volunteer, but you don't have to. But I'm gonna ask somebody this: what's an area that you marked as, you would say, 4 or below? Anybody's brave enough to share what's an area that you'd put on your wheel at a 4 or below?
Health.
Health. Okay. now everybody understand, we are now
No,
going
this is not importance though. This is where I think we're at. I don't know. We're actually spending this entire time discussing how we're supposed to answer this question. So we haven't really gotten that far.
Okay.
Are we supposed to be answering where we're currently at or how important it is to us?
That's a great question.
Great distinction.
I mean, we need to add something to that to that wheel. So here's how we typically do it. We put things on here that are important to us, right? So if they make it onto the wheel, I mean, the wheel doesn't have 16 spokes, or the pie doesn't have 16 slices, right? We limit it down to, maybe 6 to 8. So if it falls in like the top 6 to 8 things that matter to you, that's sort of where it is in importance, right? And Tiffany, Tiffany, I think you're asking a question or bringing something up that probably every one of us wrestles with, right? There could be some parts of this pie or this wheel of life that you're like, in this season, this is the most important one, right? Absolutely. Like I think we all can relate to that. When we have looked back on seasons where we were like, career was the most important one, and we look back and we have like sort of this come to Jesus conversation of like, life isn't well. What we look back on is not wishing that we had not had big goals in that area. We just wish that we had also prioritized some other things, like health, like family, like finances, right? I mean, imagine what would happen if you prioritized career and you had no prioritization for finances. We would describe that as the rat race, would we not? And everybody on here can relate to what it would be like to work really hard and then years later have like nothing to show for it. It wasn't that working hard was a wrong goal. It's just that there wasn't this counterbalancing goal in another area. But here's the next exercise. If you wrote something down that you're like, let's take health maybe as an example. In fact, we could use health and we're going to do it together. We're going to co-create this next part. Imagine if you now went to this worksheet. I'm going to screw it all up here. Hang on. All right. Can everybody now see? Now I'm actually sharing my screen. You now see the wheel of life, right? Yes? All right. So watch. We're gonna do this together right now. I'll move this over here. So we're just gonna write health.
So now it just says Zoom on front of us.
You moved it off our screen.
Oh, because all right. Okay. Now it says health up at the top. Everybody sees health? Great. I want to know, especially for the people that put an 8, 9, 10 or something higher in the health category, what are the slices or the spokes for you around health? We're going to co-create this together right now. Somebody give them to me. You can put them in the chat or you can come off mute and share some.
Diet.
Love it.
How active are you?
Exercise.
How about rest?
Sleep. Yeah.
Energy.
What does that one mean? Whoever said energy, can you say a little bit more about that?
Just the ability to function during the day. I mean, if you're not healthy, then you're not going to have the energy.
Yeah, Linda had mental health, and Linda, I even think like you could break this up into two. I think you do mental health and physical health.
As in, so if this thing here says health, so yeah, absolutely. What are some others? Community. Oh, Jeff Wu, you want to share on that? Sorry, I'm typing your name here. Community. Would that be like kind of the tribe, that accountability? Be somewhere in that bucket? Who do you go play basketball with, etc.? Yeah, love it. Right? So we got one more.
I think like
hormones
or those kinds of things.
Say that again?
Like hormones, make sure your levels are normal. if you have any sort of like autoimmune or pre-existing
why
conditions,
don't we
that
just
can
say
affect energy or all that kind of stuff too.
anything else related to seeing a doctor? Now watch, what are actually the things that when you think about how is my health, if you rated yourself a 4, if you rated yourself a 3, you see how all we're doing right now is we're actually just going in and we're actually just making like KPIs for this smaller subset of our life. Instead of just saying, oh, health's a 3. Well, is it really a 3? Like, you might be like, well, no, I'm actually doing good at sleep. And I feel decent about my nutrition. I need to move more, and I haven't seen a doctor or got blood work done in a year or 2 years, and that's why I'm viewing it as a 3. All we're doing is we're taking, for us, if Alice and I sit down and we say inside of our relationship, family or like the kids, we're feeling at like a 4 related to the kids. The first thing we will do is grab another piece of paper, draw another circle, and say, okay, what are the categories inside of kids? And it might be like, well, it's school is a category for us inside of kids, right? It on and on and on.
Very quick to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Say, oh my gosh, my health, it's going to hell in a handbasket. Well, is all of it really? Is that 100% true? This actually starts to identify what is true and where are the little places that we can make some motion that's going to affect the big picture.
Yeah.
We generalize things, and this is a way to help us get more specific.
All right, moving on. We're going to show you, we referenced something called the 5 C's, and some of you have been on some other workshops with us. And we've talked about this idea of 5 C's before. All these are words that we remember that start with C. Car wheel will be one of them. And they come with usually this series of like symptoms of like when we need to refocus on it. So the first one is this. We think about the compass for us as a memory jogger of like, are our values aligned? And the question that we notice popping up or like the symptom is like, do we feel like we're drifting? If you ever feel like you're with your partner and over time you're going and you just feel like you're drifting apart a little bit.
Which is very natural, by the way. Like that is what happens in the absence of, like, it's like growing or dying. Like it's in the same way. It's like we're going to drift, and what are the things that are going to bring the guardrail? What are the guardrails that bring us back together? Drift is going to happen. It's how quick do we notice it and how quick do we do something about it?
Yeah. So the first one for us is the compass. The second one is, hang on just a second. Second one is the idea of the car wheel, what we just talked about, this whole idea of, are you cruising along or are you hitting some potholes? And when we think about the wheel of life, think about it like a race car, right? You're driving down the road at 10 miles an hour. Life feels pretty easy. It's when you start going 100 miles an hour that the little bit of vibration inside of health or inside of finances or inside of how your kids are doing or any other area, it's when life starts to speed up that we start to notice more issues. So for us, the busier our life gets, the more often we go back and recalibrate what we just walked through with you guys on the wheel of life. I'll get through all 5 of them, and then we'll dig deeper into a few more. The third question that we ask ourselves is, are we feeling friction inside of our relationship? Are we like the metaphor here is these Clydesdale horses, and I'm curious to know who knows the story of the Clydesdales. Anybody know what's significant about them? Maybe not. So the Clydesdales, what we're going to make this up right now and say it this way: if one Clydesdale horse can pull 8,000 pounds, in theory, you put 2 of these horses together, how much should they be able to pull? One can pull 8,000. Put it in the chat for me. 2, how much? This is a math question. 16,000. Thank you. There you go. Nailed it. And here's what they found. They found that if you put these 2 horses together and they are harnessed correctly, they can pull 32,000 pounds. I don't know about you guys. I cannot think of a better example of what it feels like to be married. Are there not days where it feels like 1 + 1 can equal 11? All right, but here's the bad news. They also found that if they take these same Clydesdale horses that can each pull 8,000 pounds, and they harness them incorrectly, something just it's wrong with the yokes. I'm not a horse guy. I don't know. Something's wrong with the way they are harnessed. These horses that at least should pull 16,000 pounds are pulling like 12.
You know, those days where it's like 1 + 1 in your marriage is like 1.5 or like -72. Like,
yeah,
we all have those times, and we know those times when it feels like we're going with a tailwind, and it's like we can do anything, and then there's days where it's like we can do nothing, and all it is the difference in how we're anchored together.
Oh, somebody. All right, fine. Thank you. Oh, Joel, I just muted you. Okay. Fourth one. There we go. There we go. The fourth one is the question that we ask is, are we feeling out of sync? Have you ever had an experience inside of your relationship where you're like, I think ultimately we want the same things. I think we're even kind of agreed in the path to get there, but what we do not have in common is what we should be doing right now in this moment. Like what is like, for example, are you in a season right now to invest or to save? Right? Are you in a season to focus, to pour it on with work, or focus on the family? Are you in a season to take it easy and recover? Or are you in a season to just like really put on the gas? We want the same things. It's just that it's like we're out of sync with what should we be doing right now. So for us, it always becomes this question of getting back to cadence. How do we schedule what matters to us? And the last one that we'll talk about is this idea of a conductor. And when we're like, everything around us feels noisy, we're like, we are not sure exactly. I mean, are we even listening to the same conductor around what we do?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you've got a faith background, conductor takes a very spiritual tone very quickly. And you don't have to have a faith background to understand this. This could be around your finances. Take two people, put them married, and give them two different people that they're listening to around advice on finances.
Dave Ramsey and Grant Cardone. Like, if one of you likes Dave Ramsey and one of you likes Cardone, you're gonna have problems as to what you're gonna do with your money.
Yeah. So again, these are the 5 C's for us, and we'll start to walk through them a little bit. Oh, all right. So first question, going back to it, is, are we drifting? Go ahead.
So pull up that pen and that journal again, because as I shared at the beginning, the reflection piece, this is where the learning happens. So you've heard a lot of stuff, but now we got to get it out of here, get it on paper. But the thinking and the writing is the deepest form of reflection and learning. So as you think about your marriage, as you think about your relationship, when have your values as a couple guided you to overcome a significant challenge? And what did you learn from that experience?
We'll take a minute or so on that. All right, moving on. Grab a screenshot of this if you want. All this is one example. If you were to go online and just Google values, you'll find thousands of things on Google that give you sort of some memory joggers. One that we really like, I remember it was this deck of value cards. It'd be like, I don't know, 100 of them we put out there. It's blurry. Is it still blurry, people? Let me Yes, it's blurry. Is that what I heard? Is what it is. Is it okay? Somebody give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Either one. It's ish. Well, whatever. Okay. Is that better if I do that? Like, okay, there you go. So now you only get the ones that I care about, which are inward focus, high activation, big challenging words, right? I'll move it over to show high activation, outward focus, right? These are just, all this is this index, and it's fine that it's blurry right now. This is just this idea of like high activation, high energy level, low activation, low energy level, and then an outward focus and an inward focus. We found that across couples, or certainly across us, like some of our values are shared, and some of them it's different over time, or it's different by each of us. So the exercise that we would go through is, and again, we won't have time to do this today, but I'm telling you, setting goals together, if we are feeling drift, is a waste of time often for us if we don't go back and reevaluate values. So here's one way that we do it. We'll take a little bit of alone time, and then we'll come together in a second. Here's how it works.
Each of us will have our own page of this.
Yep.
Write down the top 10 values. I would write down my top 10, my top 5, my top 3, and then.
Well, and to be clear, right? So you top 10.
Yep.
And then all you're really doing, it's like the brackets, right? You're just like, well, which one wins? Is it this one or this one? And you work your way down. There's a bunch of different ways to whittle it down, but you find a way to whittle it down to 5. And then if you had to whittle it down to 3, what would you do? And then from there, we whittle it down. Well, from 3 is usually when we start to talk.
Yes. So we'll start to talk when we both get to 3, and start to look at what are my top 3, what are your top 3? What's my top 1? What's your top 1? And then we might find, like, you know what, there's maybe 1 or 2 that overlap. Maybe there's none that overlap. And then we'll look at, okay, in this season, what are the values that are best going to serve what we want to do, what we want to create in this next season? So both of us share freedom. So that lies in our top current values that are shared. And then I'll look at his, I'm like, you know what? I want to borrow that one. Can we share that one for this season? And so it's not solely mine, it's our couple's values. And it can just be for a season. It doesn't have to be forever.
I'm curious to know, for those of you that have done a values exercise, do you know yours? Could you throw them in the chat if you do? I'd love to hear what, for anybody who's done their values, like I'll give you my 3 right now. And it's interesting to say the words right now. If you ever think that values are something that can't change, that's one school of thought. Doesn't have to be the only belief, right? Mine right now is financial stability, freedom, and impact. And here's what I noticed. By the way, even as I said those words out loud, guys, honest moment, I felt shame about saying the words financial stability. I felt shame saying those words out loud to you on this Zoom. I felt shame. Not your job, not your problem, right? That's on me. But I'm saying it in a moment of honesty, because I realize that it's almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs for me. When things get all the way shattered down to where financial stability is a problem, I don't think about freedom. I don't think about impact, right? I'm like at stability mode. Once I get out of financial stability, what I find myself pursuing next is freedom. I would rather have the ability to work remotely, kind of work from wherever, and have freedom than like achievement or massive income or something like that. I value the freedom a lot. And then after freedom, impact. Right? That's just what I noticed about myself at this moment. it's interesting. Alice said, like, what are the values that would serve us in this season? Probably before we attended a Tony Robbins event, we always thought that values were things were static forever. Mm-hmm. Tony Robbins flips that entire concept on its head. Tony's the one that'll say, set your goals first. And then he'll say, if for somebody that had that as their goal, what would that person have to value to be able to achieve that goal? And it's just a different way of thinking about it. Anything else you want to add on yours?
No.
Okay.
I have a comment. So something that I've heard talking through when I was working through my values is sometimes things will go to the top of the list because it's something that maybe you feel like you're lacking in, versus something that could be so important to you, but it's being fulfilled will show up lower, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's not as important to you. It's just being met currently in this season.
Yeah, and there's a lot of types of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, has a series of exercises that when you ask a series of questions in the right order, and it will really help to elicit that. Right. And so one of the ways it would ask it is, it might be like, and if you had this, is there anything that if you had this would be, but you didn't have this other category, life would still be okay, or life would be a problem? Is there anything you would still be missing? And it's usually this series of questions that'll be like, oh yeah, because you're absolutely right. There's probably a value that is just so ingrained in what we have that we don't even think to list it, because it's almost like this, it's like a permission to play. It's like, well, of course I have that. Right? Yeah, that's really astute.
Yeah, that's why I don't feel guilty if like integrity or family or, faith don't show up in your top values. It's not that they're not important. It's just a given for some people that those things are very valuable. Like, they don't show up in any of mine, and yet it doesn't mean they're not important.
Yeah. All right. So second one, right? We're kind of coming back around after we walked in the first time. And this one we won't spend as much time because we've actually already done the wheel exercise a bit. Again, the question: are you cruising, or are you hitting some potholes? And the wheel of life is how we first start to set any sort of categories that matter to us, and then inside of those categories, we basically set the KPIs. Right? Think about this for any sort of business. Think about this for almost any category of your life. The sub wheels, right, that have their own slices, those basically end up being the strategies for those subcategories for us, right? And then bonus points if we get down to some that we can actually quantify, right? Like, that's the goal. You bring it down enough. How do you quantify sleep? How do you quantify nutrition? How do you quantify exercise, right? And things turn into a number.
Heather said something really important that I wanted to point out, which is you have to identify too what a 10 looks like for you. What would it mean if you had 10 in this particular area? What would that look like? Because that is actually what you're working towards. And your 10's gonna look different than my 10.
Yeah, actually, and there's a slide coming up here that I think will add some value on that. Next question. Want to give them a journaling one?
Yeah. So pull up the journals. So let's reflect on what's one thing you're currently doing in an area of life that brings you joy or fulfillment. What's something you're currently doing in one area of your life that brings you joy or fulfillment?
Throw them in the chat there as anything comes to mind. Maybe even add to it, as I notice that thing that's giving me joy or fulfillment, what does that remind me of? What does that make me think of next as something that I want to add? So again, we showed you guys the wheel of life earlier. Usually when we start writing goals, the goals are where we end up. The whole point of what categories we put for goal setting for us come from the wheel of life, right? That's why in our minds, like, that exercise had to happen first, and we like looking at it that way more so, because when I look at it on a piece of paper like this, it's hard to figure out what's in balance. This right here is nothing more than a different way to sort of think about the same. Oh, I go back here. The same concept as the wheel.
What the wheel does is that it shows you really that, I mean, the whole idea is the circle, right? How fast is your life moving, and can this wheel sustain going at high speeds? Because if there's a flat in that tire, it's going to show up. There's a difference between driving at 60 and driving at 80 and driving at 120 to the condition that wheel would need to be in for you to have an optimal ride.
So going back to this whole comment about tense, right? What, like, rate your life. Part of me actually hates that comment, right? Like rate your life on a scale of 1 to 10, rate this category of life. So in the spirit of that hero's journey, and with some great stuff from ChatGPT, here's a way that I think we pay attention to it more right now for us. And it's this idea of how far can we see in this area of our life right now? Has anybody on the call had a health challenge or a challenge with a child, or could be marriage challenge, could be financial, could be in any area of life, that when you thought about setting goals, you just wanted to throw up? You're like, I can only see right here. Next. Does that make sense? And, you know, we talk a lot about in life, we use language like peaks and valleys, right? That's language that we would use if we were talking to each other. How's business right now? We're riding high. We're kind of having a dip, right? We use language about high and low, and we sometimes relate it to emotions. I just want you to look for a second at the difference in these two images. So, image 1, image 2. What's the difference in these two images? What do you notice? Put it in the chat or come off mute.
This is Ashley Lay in Winston-Salem.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi. We went through a period in 2017 where we had 3 very close family members die, culminating in the first was his mother, the last was my only sibling who committed suicide. And if I put myself back in that situation, I feel like I'm in that valley with that fog. And sometimes life surrounds us with circumstances that you can't even create. You can't create the outfit you're going to wear for the day because of the fog and the heaviness you're living in. And it is so different from that when you're sitting where we're sitting today. We often look at each other and go, gosh, we are a living example of Gary saying you can be living your best life in a 5-year period.
Yeah.
And now we're planning the next, sorry, I get emotional, but putting myself back in that valley and now seeing the season we're in, that's very impactful for me. Because, you know, we're in the season of enjoying our grandchildren, and we've accomplished the things we wanted to accomplish and moving into retirement together.
And
your story gives so many people hope.
Yeah. Because that year, I mean, in 2017, I tried to build I was building a team. I started with KW in 14. The entire team walked away. They took my assistant of 8 years with them. I was living through, losing family members, multiple family members, and he was in a role in work that was impossible for success at the end of his 30-year career in textiles, and we were contemplating him coming into the business at that point, which he did in 18. But you compare and contrast where we were in life at that point and what has happened since then, and it's nothing short of miraculous. But it's very cool to look at it from that standpoint of where we're at when we're in that valley and when we can't see even what's in front of us to what you see standing on that mountaintop.
I see so many shares in the chat, and I would love to invite, if anybody else wants to come off mute while you're thinking about whether you want to do that. So I've seen a couple different comments here. One is kind of bird's eye view. At least when I told ChatGPT to do it, in theory the view is like about the same, right? Behind the people, looking like almost through their eyes or through them. What do they see? Look at the picture right now. How long till they're in a valley?
It can happen this fast.
And the answer is next, as soon as they start to do something. Because this is actually how the journey of life works, right? Like it's and I used to think that peaks and valleys were more like mindset or punishment, or like if we're doing good, we'll always let's have our marriage always be at this peak until your relationship gets strong enough, and in a moment of strength you decide, I think we could do some deeper work. Right? And so then you go hire a therapist, or you go do an ayahuasca ceremony, or you go do whatever you're going to do. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, we're back in the valley. Right? That conversation we weren't even willing to go. We don't talk about Bruno. We didn't even go into that conversation for a bit. But then you do, and now all of a sudden it's like you're there. But also thinking about it this way, what is an area of your life right now that when I ask you to set goals, you can see 10 years into the future? Think of this page as like that area of life, right? Maybe you've got a 10-year vision around how many investment properties you're going to have. Think about this view as the area of life that you're like, I'm one step ahead right now. You understand the next step is no different from either of these pictures. They don't move any faster in this picture. They're still taking steps. They're still just on a trail, right? They don't move any slower in this picture. None of us control the environment. Can we agree? I actually don't care at all where you land politically. I don't care about that. I want you to understand the difference. Well, actually, it'll be the difference for some. Right before the election, everybody felt foggy. Do you guys get that? Just imagine the U.S. right before the election. How far could we see till the election? Did you guys get that? What's an area of your life, now leaving politics behind, that you can't, that your version of success is like 1 foot in front of the other? I'd love it if somebody would be willing to come off mute and share anything on this. I can tell you there's a season for us where business felt like this. So many areas of life felt like this. And then all of a sudden woke up one day and like our relationship felt like this.
Except with more fog.
Yeah. Denser fog and bears. Yeah, I don't know.
We've got a good example of that.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
So I was in an office job for 17, 18 years. And that was just our life. It was fine, a salaried position. And then everything got turned up on its head. And I took a severance. went into construction, wife went into real estate, and since then it's just been one thing after another. Had some health problems this year, and now we're looking to build a team together in real estate, but we just have no idea, what tomorrow holds, and so it's just been that way. Even this last year has been just like that, very hard. So,
and don't we all know to give John the advice that we hope people give us, which is one day at a time, brother? Right? I mean, every single one of us needed to know how to navigate moments in the valleys where the visibility is just not that far. Right? When we go into the new year, when Alice and I are going to be thinking about, annual planning, I mean, annual is this like point in time. Some sections on there were like, let's just set a quarter goal. Because I have no idea what an annual goal will actually look like right now, much less a 5-year plan or a 10-year vision, right? There's no judgment about either. They all have their place. Just understand that where you find yourself in a particular area of life, you might find yourself in a peak don't think of that as an emotional high. Just think of that as I can see far. I can see far into the future in this category. And some areas, like there's been seasons with our kids. I remember one of them like going in and out of the hospital, and it's like, our version of planning was like, how was this week? Right? Nothing wrong with that. Those are just seasons. Here's another interesting question to ask while we're on the topic of our climb and our hero's journey. Ask yourself this as a couple. When we disagree, what do we usually disagree about? Are we disagreeing about the destination? Are we disagreeing about the route? The path to get to that destination, right? We want to be financially free. I think we should do it through this business. I think we should do it through this kind of job. That would be disagreeing about the route, right? Or are we disagreeing about the timing? Think about parenting. I bet if we actually sat down, we might be the only ones, we're the only ones talking, so we might be the only ones that have ever had conflict about being parents. And ask yourself, do you disagree on the destination? No, I mean, it'd be pretty simple. Take a piece of paper, write out your vision of like, what would it be like when our children are fully functioning, 18-year-olds or 35-year-olds or whatever it is, write out a vision for the future. And now ask, are we disagreeing about the route to get there? Or is it more in the like, no, it's the micro moment. Right now on the trail, I think we should take a 5-minute rest. Or right now is the time to press ahead. These are examples of when we ask a question this way, it stops making each other right or wrong.
And I think a lot of times you actually see you have far more in common than not. And we need to be reminded of that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we turn into the enemies of one another. And everything that we're doing here today is with the goal of take it outside of yourselves. What can we look at and what can we attack together out here so that we don't attack here?
Yeah.
May I add something to that?
Yeah.
A tenet that was brought up in a class I went to prior to Mega Camp 3 or 4 years ago down in Austin. There was a group of people of faith that got together, horror session, put it together. And I don't know if any of you were in it, but I can't remember the name of the book of the gentleman that spoke.
I think it's Jamie Winship.
Jamie Winship, when he spoke about certainty versus uncertainty and how, and recognizing who we are and where our DNA is showing up in that as humans, we want and we crave certainty in our lives.
Yeah.
To make a decision, we crave certainty of knowing this is the right decision and we know the outcomes and we know what's going to happen. And when you were talking about before the election, I thought of that. It was a collective national uncertainty, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And that then we feel more empowered and more able to make those decisions when we're living in certainty. But what he challenged us with is understanding that we can't push a river to go backwards. That as people of faith, we have to be willing to jump into the river and let the river take us where it will take us. And so I apply that to where it will take us in life, and knowing that we cannot always be certain of an outcome. And we cannot, when we're making decisions together, ultimately it may not be the right outcome. We may have to learn through failure again, as Gary teaches us all the time. But knowing and being okay with that uncertainty, and just having the faith that it will be okay, and make the decision, move on. Because I think so often I see this often in my oldest son and his wife. His wife has crippling anxiety sometimes, and she can't make a decision. And my sister-in-law, same way, for that fear of things not being certain and not knowing the outcome, right? That's
so good. And by the way, I saw Dave and Judy unmute, so just putting you on deck. I think I would love to hear you share too. Isn't it interesting, Ashley, how maybe it's our actions in the valley that actually have a bigger impact on us? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's our consistency when we are not at the mountaintop experience that actually has the I think it's been the hard slog through the forest that has helped our marriage more than the amazing dates we post on Instagram when we're at our best.
For sure.
Right? I wonder if we're all the same in that. Dave and Judy, hi, miss you guys.
Hi, we miss you guys too. Hey, we disagree on one thing and the thing is, it's what's most important at a particular moment. Because I have a habit of asking Dave to do something, but he doesn't communicate to me, hey, I'm busy. He jumps to or gets irritated that I ask, and I've got to get better of. I try asking, is this a good time? Are you busy doing something? But sometimes I get too focused and don't say that.
Yeah.
But he does speak up more.
Yeah.
Like, it's a good time. I'm working on something else.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, how often are there disagreements for us? They're literally just timing. It's never actually about not wanting to help the other person get exactly what they want in life. Yeah.
Wait, what we were talking about around making decisions, there is a great book called Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke about how to make decisions, because she's a poker player. Sometimes you make the best decision and it looks like all the cards are in your favor, and you still get a bad outcome.
Yeah.
And so how do you handle the different times where and how you make different decisions? So just another tool for the toolbox.
So remember, back to the Clydesdales, right? Oh, thinking in bets.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Alice has it. All right. So here's the question to go along with this. Grab your journal. When have you felt the most synergy in your partnership? What's an example of a time that you have felt the most synergy inside of your partnership? Yes, there's a little music. Yes. Tell me if I got that right. A little love. Okay, thanks. You might even find yourself answering this not in when, but you might say, where do I feel the most synergy? And that might take you to the wheel. You might find that there's one area on the wheel that you're like, we're more synergistic in this area. You might find a strength in how you're synergistic there that you could apply to other areas. It might be a pattern. You might find that there's a particular plot when you have the most synergy. Like as if our life was a movie, and anytime the villain shows up outside, the Avengers unite. Right? Or pick any group of heroes that you want. There's infighting until this outside villain shows up. Alice and I are really good when we have a common foe.
Rod just brought up something I think is important and worthy of sharing, and that is that we are so opposite, as Alice knows, personality-wise. One of us, like I am very goal-driven. I can always see down the valley. It's just something I'm always striving for. I'm always pushing for something that's going to improve me, my business, our life. I'm the person who was always looking for how to get promoted in the service and how I was going to get to the next step in my corporate job. And that hasn't changed with this career. It's just different. It's like, well, maybe next we're going to grow a team now, and then maybe I'll get into coaching, and maybe there's always something, right? Invest in properties. And Rod is a very conservative person who he couldn't go in a room and visualize how it should look, to use a real estate analogy. And I could, right? We're just totally opposite in that. And it's challenging because, I'll put something out there and say, I think we should tear down this wall and build a walk-in closet in here. And he'll go, are you kidding me? I mean, that's crazy. Like, tear down a wall. And so we're just like totally opposites. And I think that as we get, now we're in what we should be planning our retirement, really, to be honest with you, because Rod's friends, many of them are kind of going down that path. So it was a big risk for him to completely change careers and to go completely outside of his comfort zone. So when we sit here and talk about this stuff, where we try to cast a vision for what the future is going to look like, I'm oftentimes met with blank. And it frustrates me because I want to have a cohesive conversation with him about what it looks like, and make sure that I'm including him on that, and that I see what he wants for his future too. But you really don't see past today. He's comfortable in the moment, or uncomfortable in the moment, maybe.
That actually tees up kind of this conversation perfectly around strengths. And two words that I'd write down. One is this idea of superpowers. And the other way is might be a reframe of this whole idea of, oh my God, why did I marry my opposite? Sorry, that was just my internal language. I'm not saying any of you ever felt that way. That's just me. Like the idea of counterbalancing. So we'll talk about both of them, superpowers and this idea of counterbalancing. As long as this thing will move. Okay. So, sorry, I realize. Hang on, let me back up. Y'all could not see. That's what it said. What are our superpowers? Where do our personalities counterbalance? Okay.
Can we share a little bit too?
Yeah, please. Welcome.
Yeah, so we had a very serious event. We were just talking about, this is such a big event in our life that it's almost become that thing that everything rotates around. I was in dialysis for a couple of years. And that is the definition of being in a valley. And, every day I would wake up with one statement that says, today I want to live. And I'm just reflecting on that. When you are in a valley, you have to focus on the next step. You really don't have, it's not about focusing on that. You just focus on, hey, I got to get through this, and we're people of faith, and we had a remarkable, journey during that time. I tell people, you can't know God until you know him as the rod and staff that comforts you in the valley of the shadow of death. And so, it's we came through that process, a lot of stuff happening. And I remember when I got the kidney transplant, Lisa is my donor. And so we came out of the other end of that thing, and it was like, okay, I had to retrain myself to actually see beyond today. Yeah. And it wasn't an easy thing to do. So every time I'm doing these exercises, it is kind of like, rebuilding that muscle of seeing past just right now.
Albert, thank you for sharing. Guys, give him some love in the chat there. Thank you for sharing. When I think about how far we can see, there are two metaphors that have always helped me. One is like, imagine if one of you is nearsighted and one of you is farsighted, right? So like somebody that can like naturally see things that are up close, and naturally, and somebody else that can like, they're good at, they can see distance. That is for me a little bit of what like Tiffany and Rod were describing. Like somebody who's like, hey, I'm always kind of like the 10-year visionary. Like in our relationship, even though I'm not, generations beyond, but I see further than Alice on a regular basis. Like that's just where my focus of vision is. Alice, like I literally said to the kids this morning, you ready for this? It's 7:30 in the morning. Alice walks out the door with one of the kids. I go, where are you going? They're like, school? I'm like, oh, it's a school day. My short-term vision, I got issues, people. I've got issues, right? Thank goodness Alice cares that they had food at school. Like that's a thing. That's long distance, short distance, right? The valleys and the peaks, that's conceptually different. Imagine that as the outside rolling in. Imagine that's not a personality trait. That's not like some people see positive and some people don't. That's like, I promise you, every one of us has had moments in our life. It could be you live a really big life and then your entire team walks out. I don't care who you are. In that moment, you are in a valley, one day ahead. And every one of us could have a hell challenge for ourselves or somebody we love, one day ahead, right? Okay, so here's some tools. Remember, we're not going to have time to go through them a lot, but here's some tools we want to walk you guys through. The Income Energy Index. Very simply, guys, this is the tool that we use to try and stay in our strength zone, right? And I'm not really going to draw on this, so I won't bother right now. But at the end of the day, all we do, we go to a restaurant, because I said that's what we do, right? We draw two lines on a piece of paper. At the bottom of it, we write $1 sign. At the top of it, we write $3 signs, like low dollar productive, high dollar productive, low value, high value, right? And by the way, not all value equates to dollars, right? Think of it as, I don't know, low value things are the kids, high value things are the kids. You're still going to find a way to like think about the things that matter most, that have the most potent like value add to the universe, right? And then stuff to the left is stuff that drains my energy or things that I don't think I'm good at. Stuff to the right is stuff that gives me energy, right? This is a chart that anytime Alice and I are feeling kind of like, are we feeling friction? Do we need to like realign our roles? Because here's what most couples do. Most couples say, hey, I was here first. I'm gonna fill in my part of the chart. And then here's your part. Here's what you're going to do. Everything that I didn't like doing. That'll be your part of the chart. Sound like a deal? Sounds like a great idea. And it's a terrible idea. Well, I mean, the longer we live, it hasn't worked out well, right? So again, the first focus is what if you let each person in your couple, start to fill out this top portion of the chart, right? Now, where's the suckiest part of the chart at? It's down here. Start to fill out what is all the stuff that drains your energy that you feel like is the least valuable use of your time. And the first goal that we have is, could we find ways to support each other in living in this quadrant up here? I keep doing it. I don't know. To live in this quadrant up here. And could we find ways to delegate out this quadrant? And could we not make each other the way that we delegate it out? Does that make sense?
And this comes into play, especially with those of you in the relationship that might be the stronger personality, shall I say, tend to do that delegating of, well, I don't like this, you just come over here and do this. Because the quieter partner, a lot of times is, well, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And that works until it doesn't work. You ever have one of you that just snaps at some point? And it's like, all I did was ask you to do this little thing and it turned into this big thing. It's because we aren't having these conversations of what are the things that actually give you energy. And here's the thing, because we don't have these conversations often right now, just generally, some of us won't know quickly. And it will take some work to rediscover, is this really internal work of, hey, what does give me energy? Because many of us are just living in this autopilot sort of life That it's like, well, I have to do that. I should do this, but I need to do this. That's not the question. What gives you energy? What lights you up? What actually fuels your spirit and your soul? Those things matter. And just being able to identify them is the first step. Sam, I saw in the chat, it was like, I don't even know what I really want out of life. This is part of figuring that out. It's what are the things that bring you energy? What are the things that do light you up? And just noticing them, just putting them down. Like, these things give me energy. What is it about that? Just noticing that first. Yeah. All right. Moving on in the interest of time, you guys know how to draw that. You can draw that chart. Y'all can go find a place to do that. This is the chat GPT I was the least happy with, but you guys will get the idea. It tried so hard. It did, but it's still a robot. I didn't know a metaphor to explain this idea of counterbalancing. And it's all I know is the longer we've been married, I feel like we polarize more. Mm-hmm. It could literally be the louder I talk on this Zoom call, the quieter Alice will get. It's the weirdest thing, right? I don't know about you, but you and your partner, you might have some areas of life you're like, the more I do this, the more that she does it. We go together, and then other areas, it's like the more I travel, the more Alice turns into a homebody. It's strange, and it's a little bit.
She needs to make sure you feed your kids, Seth.
Well, yeah, I think they're old enough. I think they've got it figured out.
Yeah, but you know what I was thinking when you were saying that? The reason why you get to not pay attention to that is because she is.
Yes, and that's what's so fascinating, right? It's like for us all to live a big life. Think about you and your partner. For you to live the biggest life possible, right? Imagine. Look at this boat, and imagine you're one of the partners, and you step to one edge of the boat. You want to expand the territory of your life. By definition, the other partner almost has to counterbalance. And how often do we not appreciate the counterbalancing tendency? So it would not surprise me at all if the more that one of you starts to be big picture, the other one just literally at a subconscious level is like, I will go more boots on the ground. Right? It's actually, I view it as a way of we are subconsciously tracking each other and fulfilling what the entire world needs to make sure that we stay sound. Absolutely true. Like when it comes to travel, I'm the one that is like, let's travel more. Let's do more stuff. And Alice is the one making sure that memories at home are core memories, right? That's just a difference that we bring to it. So here's a few things. We will not have time to go through this a lot, but here's some different areas, some different words that we use when it comes to counterbalancing. So one of them is perpetual and finite. This is who in the relationship could just at 9-10 o'clock tonight be like, hey, I got this awesome work idea. Can I share it with you? You're perpetual. The other person, it's past 5 o'clock. Like that we're done. Like I'm out. I checked out. Yeah. Next one is global and specific. And by the way, that last comment, perpetual and finite, that's not about work ethic. That's not like somebody cares more about the business. That's just that somebody's brain just runs 24/7. We joke all the time. My idea of a perfect vacation would be to go to Montana for a month, or come up to Coeur d'Alene and see Danny and Alexa again. But I go to Coeur d'Alene, I see Danny and Alexa, and I work at a coffee shop every morning for 2 hours. Let's do it for a month. That's my perfect idea of a vacation. Alice hates that. I would say, let's go for a week and leave all the technology at home and nobody can contact us for 1 week. Yeah. Global specific. Think of this a little bit like the 30,000 foot view or the boots on the ground, who's kind of big picture or who's detailed. I'm actually going to jump to the sixth one. If you want to jump back, you can. Achievement fulfillment. This comes from Tony Robbins has this language that says two things you need to focus on: the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. So watch. Point right now, who is the champion in your relationship for achievement? Point to him. Okay. Point to who is the champion for fulfillment, the art of fulfillment. And isn't it interesting how we probably, even if you came into this relationship totally balanced, even if you came into this relationship perfectly balanced, we tend to unbalance each other as a form of counterbalancing. Does that make sense? I'm going to take by their no response if that was a yes. Okay. I love people on mute, but I hate people on mute. It's the problem with Zoom. Okay. Let me come back to this. Fourth one. Are we out of sync? Okay. We talked about this before. You want to leave it the question?
I'm going to do that. I'm also looking at time, and I know how much we've got left.
All right. We're not going to do the question. Y'all are out. Here's the worksheet that we use. When we are thinking about our schedule and we are wondering about rhythms of when we schedule what matters, here's what we start with. On the top, we take a chart, which literally could be a piece of paper, and we just draw quadrants. And here's the secret. At the top, all we do is we go from our wheel of life and we make them into columns. That's it, right? Wheel of life, and we make them into columns. And then going down the chart, we just put a time frame. In this case, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, 3 years, 10 years. Obviously, some of these things feel like habits. Something you do every hour feels very different than something you do every 10 years. One feels a little bit like a goal. Something feels like a habit. Here's what we noticed. If you took this chart right here and you just started to fill it out, you might find that there are particular columns that you nail. Who thinks if you started to fill this out and it came to the health column, you'd be like, I think I could fill out every row in the health column. All right, I'm looking at a few people.
Hey, Seth, can you let us see what it's really small and blurry? Like we can't.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, so here, tell me, and it's just hard because I'm doing this on an iPad. So everybody sees like that says physical right there, like health. And then down this side, it's just time frames. Everybody sees that? Just time frames going down the chart. Okay. So imagine, and in fact, pick any area on here that you feel most successful in. Chances are you're going to find that you already have habits in those areas. Somebody put in the chat or give me an example. What would be an example of a daily physical habit? Physical health.
Going to the gym.
Going to the gym. By the way, out of curiosity, what would be an example of a hourly or a weekly habit? Same category. What would be an hourly habit? What would be a weekly habit?
Water.
Isn't that a great one? Drinking water. Right? Weekly habit, food prep. I hadn't even thought of that one. That's absolutely right. Right? You might, monthly habit or weekly or whatever might be going to get a massage.
Oh, intentional breathing hourly. I love that one.
So good. So isn't this interesting, right? You picked a category and all we're actually doing is using as a memory jogger periods of time. Hey, if health matters to you, what is something you could do every hour? I don't think any of us came onto this call thinking about a list of items like that, right? So what we found is that sometimes we would be really good at a time frame and we're stuck in a row. A good example might be maybe you've got family or friendships. You're like, hey, we wake up every day, like we've got a routine at the daily, the weekly, the monthly level. What is something special you do with your kids that is a quarterly habit? What's an annual habit? And again, the moment the further we drag that out, the more that we're going to kind of change the language to be something like a goal, right? What would be a 3-year habit inside of your relationship? Right? I mean, right? What would be a 1-year habit? So the exercise for us became this. It just showed us areas that we were strong and areas that we had some work to do.
Yeah, I love John Acuff's study where he talks about, he does a lot of goals, and every year what most people say is, my relationships, that's like really like, that's the most important thing to me. And yet that is the area where there are the least number of habits built around, because it's easy. The world talks about a lot of these other things that it's in our face all the time, and usually with couples, it's we're good until we're not. You have those couples in your life that, you know, it's like all of a sudden, like what happened to them? Where did they go? It's because there aren't these habits that are built in to the relationship.
Yeah. Any ahas on that? Feel free to hop off and share or throw them in the chat. We'll jump ahead to the last one there, the conductor. Who will we look to for direction when we get conflicting advice? It's interesting how much we'll meet couples that are not on the same page, and literally they're not even reading the same book. Yeah. I mean, just to make it that simple. Skipping beyond the reflective question too. This would be some examples for us, right? By the way, some of these examples we might outgrow. I'm not even saying not the Bible, but some of these examples would be they were the conductor, or they were the person that we were sort of both willing to attune to or follow for a season, right? But watch, if you're both parents, Pug, I mean, you got a parenting book too. We could put that one on here, but I'll put the one that for us has been a game changer, right? Alice and I both read the book Courage to Grow. We both read it, and we kind of turned to each other in our next, conversation. We're like, oh, this could be something we follow, right? And it just became, in that area of life, we both saw it as like, this is a source that we can listen to. Mm-hmm. Think about in areas that you as a couple are feeling most on the same page about, and think about areas as a couple you're feeling least on the same page, and figure out, is there a common vernacular, expert? I hate going to like guru, right? Because the whole point is put the book down if you want to find a new book. Right now, this at the bottom, Intimacy and Desire, Dr. David Schnarch, that is the book that we've read most recently that has been most impactful on our own, like, how's our relationship doing? And maybe in a year from now, it'll be a different book, right? Right now, we're working with a therapist that, like, that's the style that she trains in.
And that's an agreement. That's a conversation. I was the one to read the book first. I was like, hey, there's some things in here I really like. Can you read it? Let me know what you think. So that opens the conversation. Yeah. And then we elevate the conversation when we find something that we agree upon, because that gives us new things, new conversations to have. Yeah.
Candidly, guys, the one on, if I was looking on this page, the one that we actually had the least confidence in was the health book that I put up here, right? I mean, great book, heard her speak. She's great. But if you're honestly asking me, so what is the book that you and Alice follow as like your Bible on health? I'm like, we don't have one. And it shows up in how we would chart our kind of wheel of life in that area.
100%.
Right? And there's been seasons where it's been on point. All right. We'll save that for another day. Well, I'll give it here for a second. We'll shift. The next two slides are some that I think we intend to come back and cover in another like 2-hour session, probably in December. We know we're going to come back in December, and we invite you guys all on, and we're just right now going to give you sort of some placeholders for it. And because maybe some of you are doing your own goal setting between now and December, here's, for the most part, the order that we would talk through things if we were going out of town for a date night, full day at a hotel in downtown Austin. We start with gratitude,
which usually comes through pictures that we did, and also calendar. I have to look back and say, where the heck were we? I don't even remember. Like, those trips were this year, so that's where the pictures in the calendar.
We think through experiences that we had, things that we're grateful for. I'll explain KPI, key performance indicator. Actually, I just explained it. Places, people. Gratitude for us is so often about people we connected with. When's the last time you just went through your phone and be like, who did we meet in the past year? Mm-hmm. What relationships are we grateful for in our lives, right? Review the prior year's goals, rallying crying word of the year. I don't know if we got pictures on here, but you want to explain word of the year?
Oh, just picking our one word for the year and what's the intention that we want to carry throughout the whole year. And we actually have some great client events and such around it too, but we do that as a family, and then we call it out in each other. Like, how did this show up for each of us? So
remember the chart a few minutes ago? Family column, annual line, annual row. Our word of the year paint party as a family, where we all paint our word for the year for the next 12 months. That's something we do every year as a family that we're proud of. Then we review the wheel of life, right? We've talked about that, and business KPIs, which is nothing more than instead of saying wheel of life 0 to 10, it's like, how did we do? What's a number? What's an income number? What's a transaction number? How much did you save? Any numbers, anything that you put into a number, you can start to consider that way. And then we've always found if we review our budget, which would be both the income, revenue, and expenses, and our calendar, it's that whole idea of like, show me those two things, I'll show you what you value. So we look back at that retroactively, right?
And actually compare them to our values. Like, what were the things that we said were our values, and do those line up? Were they actual values or were they aspirational values?
And in a way, you'll see it the other way too. Look at your calendar. Look at how you spent your time. Look at how you spent your money. That is what we value. Sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit, right? I spent 12 days skiing this year. I'm like, I think I kind of beat myself up for like not having fun or not doing anything. Like, I'm really proud of myself, right? Like that, like I'm proud of myself for doing that. I felt like that was some good self-care that I don't give myself credit for. And I felt really good. Then we reconnect at that point. Now that's all kind of in the past. We kind of pause there, reconnect with our big why, revisit our values, make sure, is there anything we want to change in the season? And then we start to reimagine our goals. And I wrote on here four different ways at least, vision boards, one word, a rallying cry, this idea of like I'll give you an example. We're going to put a man on the moon and bring him back safe to Earth by the end of the decade. That's not a SMART goal, or it's barely a SMART goal, right? That was a rallying cry in a speech, right? We're going to send a man to the moon. It was still helpful and effective. It wasn't sufficient, but it was necessary. And sometimes, like our rallying cry in 2019 was move to Austin. There's nothing smart about that goal. Does that make sense? But it's actually what we needed to use in every conversation to anchor it in. And then we do the same thing. We go from there. Okay, now take these goals. Now put them into the budget and put them into the calendar. And after we do all that, then we actually start to look at our businesses. What are the business goals we would need to fund everything we just talked about that is our life by design?
And that's what keeps it from comparing to everybody else, because it's our life. It's what we want. And we get to figure out how to then fund it.
Yeah. Pause right there just to see if there's any last questions. We'll walk you guys through a couple other things. And I know we threw a lot out in the last little bit. So give it a chance if anybody wants to come off mute and ask a question or throw it in the chat.
I'd love to know, like, what's one thing you're walking away from? Like, if you only take one thing and you do something with it, what's the one thing that you take today?
I'd say that we need to clearly do a lot more goal setting. You guys are fucking crushing it.
Thank you. Save and Duty, the Wheel of Life. Yeah. There's so many of these tools that people only pull out once a year. And the reality is, it's what keeps you in alignment is doing these things quick and often. And it's something that you really need to make time for.
And I think that whole idea of like being as flexible as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are evolutions. We'll probably be doing it different in a few years, right? This is just an evolution, and yet every one of these things we got somewhere. Right? We got it in a small group, a Zoom like this, a workshop with Tony, whoever.
Yeah, ours is to do more just goal setting and values together. And then we actually downloaded the Working Genius yesterday, I guess. We just need to go through the assessment. So, yeah.
Love that. Love that. And Linda, I see that comment there. Liz is saying, she's saying away, identifying where there's a disagreement in the timing, the destination, or the route. Right?
It's a great distinction.
I hope counterbalancing was helpful for somebody else. Our relationship learned the hard way when we did not appreciate our differences and just thought they were annoying, and then started to see them as counterbalancing.
For me, the income energy index was really helpful, and I thought, like, outside of our coupleship, that it would be cool to like do this with our team members and kind of check in what they feel.
Yeah.
Any of you who run teams, that sheet is how I recruit everybody. That sheet is how I process all team building.
Yeah. Shows up on my coaching calls every week.
Yeah. So one, we are so glad you guys have been on today. We're going to break here in a second. We just want to let you know, like, there are some things that we want to continue to do for anybody that wants to go deeper on a journey like this together. In the past 3 or 4 months, guys, this is foggy for us, right? So we're in the valley, not emotionally, just we can't see very far. Everybody gets that metaphor now, right? We can't see very far, but what we do know is, like, man, we love doing this kind of work with other couples. We want environments where there are couples together that are like we're in this as a team, and we want to be surrounded by other couples that are pro our team and pro their relationship working, right? Okay, I'll go there, and you can share whatever you want to share on it.
So the question that I would pose if we had more time is just this idea of, what is drift costing you? Because it's as we drift and everything gets out of alignment, that it gets expensive. Not just money, but the relational equity starts to bleed. So write down that question. I want you to talk about, like, what is the drift, and that time that we allow the drift to happen, what's that costing us? And what we found was we invited some couples to our home back in August to come do this as a 1.5 day sort of experience. We didn't know who was going to show up, what it was going to look like. Here are some pictures from kind of who was there and what transpired. It was a magical couple of days together, and the group has stayed together, and we've had some more couples join us since. We've been meeting on Zoom twice a month, doing some stuff together, and everyone's like, we need more of this. We just need more, because it brings us together more quickly. And it just means we can do bigger things in the world and for our family. And so it's been an extraordinary community that's kind of started to form.
Yeah. So 4 ways we can stay connected. One is keep joining us on stuff like this that we're doing. You'll find these from time to time. Number 2, if you want to get a little bit more involved than that, 3 things that we're doing. One, we've got that community, right? We call it the REaligned Couples Community. And there's some folks in here that are on it. And the reality is we want more awesome couples. We get together basically 2 times a month, and then a few other pop-ups. And we would love to have you. If that speaks to you, go to realignedcouples.com/membership. Use the code here. Use this code VIP, because the pricing on there will not be the price you'll get. This is cheaper if you use VIP. And if you just want questions answered or you want to talk about it, we'd love to talk to you. What we know is we want to surround ourselves, and we want to create a community for couples that are living their biggest life, and they want to be with like-minded couples. So there's some stuff that way. Second thing is we are starting over the next couple of weeks a new series on that. And here's what we know. Who's read the 12-week year? Okay, so we realize, like, the 12-week year, what it does for all-time goal setting is it's like, if you want to get to where you're going faster, turn a year into a quarter. And so we've actually started piloting, like, what does it look like for us to gather once a quarter, create it as a summit, as a virtual summit, and actually starting to set quarterly intentions as couples. This is for couples that are not just like, I don't want to say, if you just want to, like, stay realigned at a period of time, join the first thing that we just talked about. And if you're like, there's some projects that as a couple we're working on, And we want to be surrounded by people that are like a lot more intentional on it, and we want to increase the cadence of those conversations and the intentionality. We'd love to talk with you about this. If so, email us, adventure@realignedcouples.com, and we'll talk. Remember what I said about fog? There's areas in your life that you're going to have stuff that's foggy. This is an area that we are just launching, and we're looking for the right people kind of at the ground floor on it. So we'd love to talk about that. And that's it. And then save the date for December 13th. We're probably going to take some of the ahas from today's session and build on it. We just want to help as many couples as we can go into next year thinking about their relationship and thinking about goal setting on as much the same page as possible.
One of the biggest pieces of value that I think you got a little taste of today, but not at the same level as we get a couple of times a month and that we got back in August, was the value of community. I think somebody said in the chat, thank you for sharing, because now I don't feel so alone.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. We get to share stories really vulnerably, because when you're an entrepreneur and like everybody that you come in contact with is a potential client, it's really hard to disclose things that are tough. And there are lots of places in the world you can go right now that will say like, oh, if things aren't going your way, just leave.
Yeah.
It's really easy. Like, sign here, go this way, you go this way. And this is a community that has been very clear about, you know what? We know we're going to have hard days, and we're going to take a stand for your relationship, even when it gets hard, and we're going to help walk you through it, because we've all been there. We've all been there. We didn't get to share much of our story today, but 25 years, and yeah, there was a visit to a divorce attorney, and we can walk you through that story, and we're open books with all of it, because here we all are wanting to build wealth. The biggest thing you can do to hurt your wealth is divorce. And I've coached far too many people that went through it that didn't need to. And we want more than just keeping people from divorce. We actually want to see thriving relationships where you're really excited to be together in year 40, in year 50, in year 60 of your marriage. And where that happens is what you do today. So we hope you consider joining us. We hope you consider inviting some friends to the next one that we do, because we just think there's a lot of people out there that could be helped.
Yeah, at the lowest level, when we put this, no, I don't think so. Was I frozen? Were we frozen? Yes, no. Oops, sorry, a little bit. Okay. When we put this out there to folks, we had it be a real open environment, right? There could be some of our real estate clients on this call. There could be realtors we know around the country, other business professionals, everything else. The further up that mountain that we go, for us, it is specific on folks that work together. Whether you work together or not, we think this content is incredibly valuable, right? Would you guys agree? This content, whether you work together, works? Yes.
I heard an analogy that if you are standing at a foot of a mountain looking at it as a sole person versus somebody beside you, the elevation of the mountains cuts down by, I don't know, is it half or what is it?
I've heard this as well. I don't know the numbers, but you're spot on. It's that when you are staring at an obstacle or a mountain with a partner, they've statistically proven it that your view of how big of a challenge it is. Sean Aker, that's fantastic. That's great. Thank you. I'm going to bring that in, Tiffany. Here's one way that we liken it. It's like imagine if you were a gymnast at the Olympics. You know how a gymnast at the Olympics, when they pick their routines, they get to pick a difficulty level, right? So the gymnast picks the difficulty level of the routine they're going to do. Raise your hand on here if you work together as a couple. Raise your hand if you work together. Some of you are like, yeah, okay. So here's the thing. In terms of a difficulty level that you all chose, you all picked the highest difficulty level in my mind, right? You got to pick the difficulty level. So what happens when the gymnast who picks that difficulty level goes to the Olympics? They might get gold. They might fall off the high bars, but it's very unlikely that they're going to get bronze. In other words, when couples work together, our experience is this can either go really, really well, or this can crash and burn. And there's not a whole lot in between. And we want to help couples go really, really well. Okay? guys, we appreciate you being on. We'll stay on for a couple minutes and answer some questions. And we also will send out thank you for being on here with a questionnaire of like, hey, what value did you get? What should we cover more of, etc. Give us your feedback, and as we put together slides, we'll get that out to folks as well for the folks to give us the feedback. So that'll be your chance for that. And I saw one question in here in the chat of some examples of quarterly intentions. So I think I'm going to answer that two ways. So number one, we used to get together and we did annual planning. We've just found now at the speed of life that we have, we just take what we would have done annually and we create that amount of intentionality and we do it quarterly. So if I said the word intention, let me back up and just say like this word of like a summit or a intention setting time.
Here's the problem with annual goals, which everyone's going to set between now and December 31st. The problem is you think you have time.
Yeah. And
you don't. You will get to October of next year and have the oh crap moment of here are all the things that we didn't do. And it's cadence as a community of staying on track to the things that you said were important to you and shifting more quickly when you need to shift, because you might think that that's the goal and something will happen in life and it's like, oh wait, we need to pivot. We need to change a little bit. The market changed or health something changed or something with the kids changed or whatever. Something changed and now we need to reshift. You can't wait until this time next year to reshift all of your goals. And what most people do is they just throw all goals away and they're like, well, we'll see what happens. And we know how that works out.
And the second way that I answer that comment about intention is sometimes when we say we're going to do a goal setting workshop, we find that it alienates like half the people. Not alienates, just half the people are like, not so into your type A, high D goal thing, right? And by the way, this is typically, think of that science of achievement, art of fulfillment. Folks who would focus more on the side of art of fulfillment are like, I'm not too into that. So we soften those words. It's things like intentions. I'll give you an example. We had one quarter, this is going back a couple of years, where our intention as a couple, you ready for this? We get to the fun faster. We get to the fun faster. That showed up in everything, right? That could show up in how often we could say yes to each other on a date night. That could show up in intimacy. It showed up when we went with the kids on a trip and we're like, should we go to the beach? Should we not? Should we go ziplining? Should we not? We're like, we get to the fun faster. Let's go. That's an example of a rallying cry. Not all of our life needs to be in like numerical goals. Sometimes what we actually need, think about yourself. Think about just between now and the end of the year. How helpful would it be to just have a rallying cry between the two of you of how you're going to approach with intentionality the holidays? How are you going to approach all the different relationships? One of our current ones, am I going to get it right? Yes. We connect with fun and ease. I always forget the fun part. I was about to use a different word. I'm like, Al will kick me under this.
A lot of ours revolve around fun because that is an area that we have to work at. It's not natural for us to go have fun.
So if we're on a fight before a call like this, or we're out of sorts, literally before we hop on a Zoom call, we actually might just turn to each other like, we connect with fun and ease. And it's just a way for us to anchor in what we want to be true for us in that moment. Does that make sense? All right. Was there any other questions? Oh my gosh.
Although say I really do like what ChatGPT had to say.
Saving that chat. That's for sure. All right. How do I save the chat? I love it. Anybody else? Any questions? You come off mute. Love to hear any ahas. We are over the top of the hour.
Thanks for hanging in there with us.
Yeah.
Questions, thoughts, gratitude, funny joke.
Otherwise, we leave you with outro music and who is that? I don't know.
We're grateful to be a part of the REaligned group, and so if anybody needs a testimony or we've been on the call not the whole time since August, but it's been great to be a part of the community. Yeah. So we'd love to have more people.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, guys. Have an awesome Friday.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Talk to everybody soon. Cheers.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Great to see you guys.
Great to see you.